All right, let's talk about fintech. Every time you check your bank balance, make a payment, it all happens through a digital doorway. So today, we're going to talk about how to build a fortress around those doorways. We're talking about securing APIs, which are, no exaggeration, the absolute lifeblood of modern finance.
So let's just jump right in with a question. Think about it. In this huge, complex world of banking apps, payment processors, all that stuff, what do you think is the #1 biggest target for an attacker? What's the bullseye on the board?
Yep, you guessed it. It's the APIs. They're the messengers, right? The digital glue that holds this whole financial world together. And because they're handling our most sensitive data, our money, they are under constant attack. It's pretty simple. Get through the API, you get to the cash.
Okay, what you're looking at here, this is basically a nightmare for any security team. An attacker gets into one tiny, seemingly unimportant internal app, but then they use that system like a trampoline, launching themselves deeper and deeper into the network, going after the real prize. See, a bad API isn't just one open door. It's like giving an attacker a master key to the whole building.
So this is where we build our fortress. Look, instead of trying to guard 1,000 different doors and windows, the whole strategy is to build one single, heavily fortified main gate. And that's our API Gateway. It brings all our defenses to one spot, and man, does that make things simpler.
But what is an API gateway, really? Well, at its heart, it's something called a reverse proxy. But a better way to think about it is like a super smart bouncer at the front door of a club. It stands right out front of all your important systems, checks every single person or request that tries to get in, and decides, okay, you can go here, or nope, you're not getting in.
And this diagram shows you exactly where that bouncer stands. It's in what's called the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. Think of it as a security airlock between the Wild West of the public internet and your really sensitive internal network. By forcing all traffic through this one spot, you shrink your attack surface down to almost nothing. Now hackers only have one door to bang on, and it happens to be the most heavily defended one you've got.
All right, let's talk layers, because a good defense is always layered. The very first job of our fortress is just crowd control. Managing the massive flow of traffic trying to get through the gates, and figuring out who's a real customer and who's a bot trying to break the door down.
And this number? This is the gateway's secret weapon for managing that crowd. It looks simple, right? Just 3 digits. But it is absolutely critical for security.
429. It's the official HTTP code for too many requests. This is the gateway basically saying, whoa there, you're coming at me way too fast. You need to slow down. And this whole idea is called rate limiting, and it's your first line of defense against just being totally overwhelmed.
And why do we do this? Well, in fintech, the reasons are huge. First, it stops brute force attacks, someone just hammering your login page trying to guess passwords. It also stops data scrapers from trying to just suck down your entire customer list. And just as important, it makes sure there's fair access for all your real customers and prevents your back-end systems from melting down under a sudden, even if legitimate, traffic spike.
Okay, so we've handled the crowd at the door. Layer 2, checking IDs. Our bouncer needs to know who is trying to get in. Are you really who your ID says you are? And are you on the list to get into the VIP section? That's authentication and authorization, plain and simple.
Now, in the digital world, there are 2 main types of IDs. You've got API keys and JSON Web Tokens, or JWTs as everyone calls them. Think of an API key like a long-term key card for a robot. It's great for one machine talking to another. A JWT, on the other hand, is more like a temporary day pass for a person. It's perfect for when an app is doing something on behalf of a real user. And our gateway? It's got to be able to check both.
This is such a great way to think about why tokens like JWTs are so cool. Imagine you're at a music festival. You wouldn't walk around with your credit card hanging out of your pocket, right? No! You exchange your cash for festival tokens. That way, if you drop a few, who cares? The damage is limited. You haven't lost access to your entire bank account. JWTs are exactly like that, but for your digital identity.
Okay, but that brings up a really important question. If the gateway has to phone home to the main security office every single time it sees one of these festival tokens, things would grind to a halt, right? It'd be a huge bottleneck. So how in the world does it check if a token is legit all on its own?
The answer is this really clever process called JWKS discovery. So instead of asking about every single token, the gateway just, every once in a while, calls up the main server and says, hey, can you give me your list of public keys? It hits a standard address, grabs a file that points to the keys, and then downloads them. And just like that, it has everything it needs to check the signature on any token that comes its way. It's super, super efficient.
Okay, so we've managed the crowd, we've checked all the IDs. Now for the third and deepest layer of our defense, we're actually going to inspect the cargo. We need to open up the packages that people are trying to bring inside and see if there's anything dangerous hidden in there.
Just take a look at this. It just looks like a weird email address, doesn't it? But this is not an email address. This is a weapon. It's a classic SQL injection attack, dressed up to look like normal user data. If this little piece of text gets past our defenses and hits a database, it could literally blow authentication wide open.
And here's the crazy part. Look at this validation report. According to all the official rules of what an email address is supposed to look like, this thing is perfectly valid. It passes the test. And that is exactly why just checking the format of data isn't enough. Our gateway has to dig deeper and actually inspect the content from malicious code.
And here's a really important point. This inspection is a two-way street. The gateway doesn't just check what's coming in, it also checks what's going out. This is crucial for stopping data leaks, things like super detailed error messages or internal system info that you would never want an attacker to see.
Let me give you another classic example of what this layer protects against. So you're browsing the web and you land on a malicious site. You don't know it, but there's a script running in the background. That script secretly forces your browser to send a request to your bank's website. And because you're already logged into your bank, it uses your cookie to, say, transfer money out of your account. That's a cross-site request forgery attack.
So how do we stop that? Well, the defense is called CORS, Cross-Origin Resource Sharing. Basically, your web browser has a built-in rule. Don't talk to other websites unless you're explicitly told it's okay. CORS is just the mechanism for giving that permission. And the API Gateway is the absolute perfect place to manage those permissions centrally. Telling browsers, yep, this site is legit, or nope, block that request.
So when you put it all together, what do you get? You've got crowd control, you've got ID checks, and you've got cargo inspection. By combining these layers, the API Gateway gives you this single, unified, and seriously tough security posture. And as you can see here, the gateway really becomes more than just a security guard. It's the central hub for everything. It plugs into your monitoring systems, your logging, your performance caching. It becomes the brain of your entire API operation. It's the one place you can go to see and control everything that's happening.
So I'll leave you with this thought. Right now, the API Gateway is the best fortress we know how to build against today's threats. But the entire world of finance is becoming this giant interconnected web of APIs. The ground is always shifting under our feet. So the real question we have to keep asking ourselves is, what's the next trampoline attack? What's that one sneaky vulnerability that we haven't even thought of yet? That's the challenge that lies ahead for all of us. Thanks for tuning in.